Hi, folks. Just a heads up before we start the episode. This episode deals with sexual violence. And so if that is something you are uncomfortable with, feel free to skip it. It's integral to the story. We tried to talk about it delicately, but we know some people it's a no way for them, and that's totally fine. So we'll see you next episode.
Hello and welcome to the Chronicles of Dragonlance. In this show, my co-host and I delve into the novels and stories of the incredibly famous and lengthy fantasy series Dragonlance. We're going to go book by book and delve into the secrets that made this series so groundbreaking and legendary. Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. My name is Shivam Putt, and with me, as always, is my co-host Jonathan Howard. Hi, John.
Hey.
Today, we are continuing our venture into Book 2 of Dragons of Autumn Twilight, which is book 1 of Dragonlance. There's a weird thing that they did where they split each of the Chronicles books and each of the Legends books into individual sub-books that were different segments of the story. We discussed this last episode, and today we are discussing Chapter 2 of Book 2 called The Stranger, Captured.
Indeed we are. The chapter starts pretty much where the last one left off. We're back in Solace. We're still in the point of view of Tika.
Yeah.
Who works at the inn. Again, it's mostly empty. There's some draconians, some hobgoblins, and as she describes them, some human killers. And then maybe a few people of Solace huddled in a corner. Did we talk about this in the first episode when they introduced hobgoblins? Are hobgoblins just bigger goblins, or are there not goblins in Krynn?
Hobgoblins are effectively just bigger goblins.
Got it.
As far as D&D is concerned, they're like a goblin subrace. Goblins themselves are basically very short, something like 3 or 4 feet tall. They're like, in this world, they're considered maybe dumber and more like disposable. They're D&D kind of, in D&D first edition level, goblins and hobgoblins, you would have something like a pack of 6 goblins and then one hobgoblin acting as the bigger, tougher boss, right? Like the mob boss who's running it. Later on, of course, Dragonlance develops the goblins more. We even get a Goblin Nations trilogy later. And frankly, I think it was really good. It was really cool to see goblins actually getting some more respect. Because like early D&D in the 80s treated them very much like just fodder. There's a lot of criticisms that can be said for like Dungeons and Dragons era. And one of those is that all of these enemy races and stuff were never given kind of a chance. They were always just treated as disposable people there to be bodied and to have your like get their gold off them or whatever. They're like dehumanized. They're not given any sort of depth or like culture or value or anything. They're just like, we just exist to live in this dungeon and then we make more of ourselves and then you kill us and then we come back later. There's no depth to it, but hobgoblins at least were considered the more intelligent, the more rough and ready. Like humans and like the dragon armies prefer to work with the hobgoblins, and the hobgoblins would then bring their goblin legions with them.
Got it.
There's also like more people in the goblin family, but it's not really important.
Is Toad a goblin?
Toad is a hobgoblin.
Okay.
He's the most famous hobgoblin in Krynn.
Yeah. I just didn't know if he was a hobgoblin or something else.
So the hobgoblins are the ones that actually have like more coherent English, more coherent conversation. They still can't be wizards or anything, but they can be clerics. They're fighters. They're big thugs. The Chronicles did not treat goblins with particular depth here. And they're only there long enough for draconians to be introduced. And obviously Margaret and Tracy found draconians far more interesting than goblins. And so goblins just kind of show up and goblins were there.
Got it.
But in kind of a parallel to the way, like, the first chapter of the first book was, they're in the inn, but instead of having normal humans and like, just townspeople living their lives and doing the thing, suddenly everybody is either army men, mercenaries, or like, monstrous races. And the fact that they like go out of their way to emphasize that it's all of these non-humans who are here that are just messing with everything is supposed to give you this sensation of, oh, everything has gone wrong and awful. They emphasize this again with the fact that, for instance, at the end of the first book, we learned that Hedrick the Theocrat had been trying to convince the villagers that Verminard's okay and he'll be fine and he'll come here and he'll bring us jobs and get rid of all those immigrants. It's like all of the sort of like weird rhetoric that you would expect from him. And if he looks out and he sees that the dragons have come and burnt everything down, we're told in the beginning of this chapter that our dear turncoat here, who has gone and sold us out to the dragon armies, was later sent to the slave mines by Verminard.
Yeah.
Well,
Hedrick the Theocrat was not in his nightly spot. Lord Verminard had rewarded the High Theocrat's service by placing him among the first to be sent to the slave mines.
yeah. So no good deed goes unpunished. You invite the you invite Dracula in, and this is what's going to happen, right?
The leopard wasn't supposed to eat my face.
That's exactly what this is. This is like definitely like, huh? Who would have thought that the man who is working for the Queen of Evil and has a horde of fire-breathing dragons would not want to help us? Why wouldn't he? That seems so odd.
Yeah, and then a hooded man with brown eyes and an accented voice, he enters late in the day. He goes into the corner, keeps his hood up. He doesn't really talk to anyone. Soon thereafter, the companions come in. They look tired and worn out. Tika is surprised. She pretends not to recognize them and she tries to warn them.
Yeah, but she is so transparent.
Karamon almost tries to talk to her and she's like, shut up.
Yeah, she is so bad at this, though. She's like, sit down anywhere, strangers. I totally don't know who you are. Wink. It's like, oh, girl, please just act normal. And it's like the most just awkward kind of way to do it. And of course, they sit down and a bearded guy leads the group past the draconians. The draconians are staring at them, who see, and this is what the draconians see, of course. They see 4 men and a woman, a dwarf and a kender, which is already a motley group of people to show up in the middle of occupied Solace, right?
Yep.
And the draconians are like, huh, this is weird. That guy's got a staff. They're all kind of messed up looking. These must be just random refugees. Why are they here? Why wouldn't they have been just shipped out to Pax Larkets with the rest of the slaves? Which is a fair and reasonable question to ask if your job is to capture people and then send them to Pax Larkets as slaves.
These slave mines, I don't remember. Do they ever get to them?
Yeah, basically, when you're at Pax Larkets, which is the final segment of this book, which is where Verminard and everybody lives, Pax Larkets is kind of in this pass in the mountains that goes between Evanescenia and Thorbarden. And around that area are a lot of mountains that are iron rich, that are metal rich. The dwarves obviously built the fortress there in order to exploit the natural gems and stuff. And so Verminard sees that there's this empty castle. He basically sets up shop and was like, oh, there's all these mines and stuff here that the dwarves kind of left after the cataclysm. What if we just open them up again? And so that's kind of what these slave mines are.
Okay. I just was wondering if there was ever, but I guess we'll find out later in the story.
Like, they don't explicitly go into it,
Oh, okay.
but you can kind of piece it together as they're going.
Okay. The draconians think that, hey, maybe we should get them, arrest them. And then they're just lazy, right? They're here to drink. They're like, we're not on duty. Someone else can do it.
It's like, look, they're not going to get anywhere. They'll be fine. It's dinner time, bro. Let me just eat my food. They go back to drinking. And Tanis, Karamon sit and go to Tika. And they sit there. And Tika's like, please, get me out of here. Take me with you. I knew you came back for me. Just get me out. Obviously, she's currently shell-shocked. She's in a town that's been destroyed. She sees that her crush and all of her friends are back and is like, I need to get out. Please take me with you. And Karamon's like, they're there, kind of like, I don't know what to say. And so Tanis, of course, is like, okay, y'all need to chill. Otherwise, the Draconians are going to come and get us. So let's sit down. Let's stop talking. And Tika tells what's happened. So Tika goes and gets Desra and all the other random people to get food and beer and stuff. And she quickly brings them up to speed on what's going on and says every week the slave caravans leave for Pax Larkis, except now they've taken almost everyone except for a few of the skilled workers, like Theros Ironfeld, who is the town blacksmith, and those a few folks have been left behind. And she's worried that the blacksmith will go next. Now, this blacksmith, of course, is going to be important later, but we'll get to him when we get to him. And then she's like, yeah, man, it's weird. It started with this captive party of elves. And Tan's like, beg your pardon? Elves? What elves? And he just says this in he's so shocked, he basically yells it out. But the Draconians turn and look at him, and then they go back to their drinks because they're in their cups, whatever. And they yell for some more booze. Tika goes over there. Yeah, the Draconians are basically wasted. And this is where Draconians in the first part of the book are described to being like this sort of human dragon hybrid. All the art makes them look like walking lizard men, but the text gives them faces of humans that have been twisted and covered in scales. And this dude, this drunk one, is like, We may not be men like you're accustomed to, sweetie, it said drunkenly, flinging its scaled arm around Tika's waist. But that doesn't mean we can't find ways of making you happy. Which is one of the creepiest lines they've ever written. It's like, oh, that's so gross.
I wondered, it's like, why would a dragon man be interested in a woman?
Right. Mind you, this is Autumn Twilight, so we don't have a lot of details about what the draconians are. Later on, like when they go and fill out the text and stuff with the game materials and everything, and we realize that draconians are asexual. They've got no women. They're all males, but they're effectively genderless. The gender bifurcation happens much, much later.
Aren't they just corrupted dragon eggs?
Right.
So it's like, why would they ever show any interest in a human woman?
Right. And
it's so weird.
More than that, what are they even going to do? They're lizards, right? Like, obviously, these are books made for preteens, so they don't go into detail about the way we might get in a novel today of what draconians would do. And certainly there's a lot of fan fiction that's been written. But
I'm not looking for that.
no, spare yourself. But it's more like the creepiness of it all is, I think, what they're trying to drive home. Less about what these guys are actually going to do. I mean, for all we know, they're going to go home and play like a game of cards. It's more like, look, these inhuman lizard monsters are here and they're just like creeping on all the ladies. They're really like just wrecking the place. They're treating this like it's their, pet hovel or whatever. And it's meant to just give you this sense of displacement and this sense of wrongness. Draconians are already deeply, deeply wrong. Like you said, we will discover later they are corrupted good dragon eggs that were corrupted with the help of wizards and clerics working together alongside like these dwarves who were giving like this pollen and stuff. They're all treated as men, but until women are introduced in like the fifth age draconian, like female draconians later, they're asexuals. They're not reproducing. The only way you can get more draconians right now is to corrupt more dragon eggs.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird.
It does reinforce that things are not good in Solace.
Everything is bad.
Yeah. We also learned that Karamon is having thoughts about Tika. This seems, I guess, even love can bloom on a battlefield, as we all know. And it appears to be doing so right here as well.
But I mean, they've known each other for like
yeah,
their whole lives.
Karamon and Sturm are getting upset when they see the draconians harassing Tika. And Tanis has to tell them, cool it. She's been working at her bar
right?
her whole life. She can handle it. She knows how to handle some rough customers.
If there's one thing Tika knows how to deal with, it's drunks.
Yeah.
Harassing a barmaid is like miserable, but it's also part of the job that she has dealt with, and she knows how to handle it, whether it's a crazy lizard guy or not. Obviously, the draconians know they're not going to push too far because they still want their booze.
Yeah.
Right? So
the party is like, what do we do now? We came here for supplies. That's a bust. There's nothing here. We also learned that Raistlin has learned some new spells, right? He's been reading the book of Fistandantalis. Tanis wants him to go to Quellinesti. Is that how you say that? Quellinesti?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Quellinesti.
That's where the elves live. And it's right around this time that Taz lets Tanis know that, hey, that stranger in the corner, the one that we were introduced to earlier, who had his hood up and had the almond eyes, is listening into our conversation.
It's also interesting that they slip in that Bracelet leveled up in between fighting the dragons and now, because that's how mages learn new spells, baby. You fight, you level up, and woo! Now we can cast another first level spell. It's awesome. I need to make an aside about wizards in D&D First Edition for a minute. It is wild to me how weirdly bad Gygax made them. The original wizards, when you look at them, they have like 4 hit points. And the average dagger does 4 hit points. So these guys will die to a stiff wind, right? And they get like 1 or 2 spells a day. They have to memorize them. They get to choose them in the beginning, then they forget them and they have to rememorize them and can't do anything until they rememorize that spell with like 8 hours of rest. For the first like half of your adventure, the wizard is a glass cannon who does nothing and dies all the time. But
is he even a cannon? Like, are the spells even that strong?
No, they're not even a cannon. He's just like a glass like slingshot.
Yeah.
But like you hit level 5 or 6 and suddenly they just like it's like looking at a graph, like an exponential graph going, the arc goes straight to the moon. Suddenly in like a couple of levels, these guys are like, oh yeah, we're traversing space and time, and I'm tearing open holes in reality to go to the home of the gods. And
hey, that's spoilers. We're not even there yet.
Or like I can create an invisible box, put you into it, and then shunt that box into like alternate universe. It's like, hey, guess what? Congratulations for surviving. Now you get to have some fun. Of course, later editions of D&D were like, hey, you know what? What if the wizards also got to have fun at the beginning of the game? What if we made them not just suck all the time?
Well, and really, what if we let other adventurers have fun later in the game, right?
Yeah.
Because if you were in a game with like a level 20 wizard, it's like, well, what are we going to do? Let's just let him handle it.
Yeah, like they can just wish them to like ashes. And meanwhile, the poor fighter is just sitting there like, I swing my +1 sword. All right, that's cute. Like the wizard just turned that dragon into a hamster. If you want to hit the hamster, go ahead. Oh, the hamster's got higher armor class than your swing does. Sorry. But yeah, so
So Taz notices the stranger. The stranger approaches the companions, and the draconians trip him. And it's revealed that he's an elf.
mhm.
And as soon as they see it, the draconians attack the elf. And here's where Tika goes into like full barmaid mode, where she just like hits one of them on the head with a cast iron skillet and just bam. And then it's a bar fight.
Oh yeah. And here's the thing though. Tika's skillet is like one of the most iconic things in Dragonlance because like she comes and she in every book she shows up in, she just takes this iron pan or like some equivalent thereof. She's like because like she's statted as a fighter because there's no just generic human class or whatever. But she comes there and she's like, look, man, I can't swing a sword, but I can break your face with a pot. If you've ever held a cast iron skillet, I would not want to take that bludgeoning damage. But the interesting thing here, this is the first time, 250 pages something odd into the book, that we meet an elf, like a full-blooded elf. Tanis is a half-elf, but here we're given the very iconic first edition Tolkien D&D,
Pretty boy elf.
right? Almond-shaped eyes, slanted ears, and a delicate wispy features. So D&D elves in the olden days effectively looked like Spock. Spock meets Legolas type of thing, or like Chinese Spock, because they've always got slanted almond eyes for some reason, because they've got to otherize them. They've got to do it. Just like all these, like, dwarves are coded as Scottish. Like the elves are always coded as these like mystic Orientals. And it's so weird. It's like one of those weird, like subtle racist things that you don't really realize until much, much later on. Of course, it doesn't, I mean, people don't realize it because they're all like blonde.
Yeah.
So we've got this little elf guy here. The elf's like, look, I'm just trying to go and say hi to these random strangers here. And of course the draconians are like, we're at war with the elves.
Yep.
We are hella at war with the elves. And so stabby stabby time. I'll cut his slanty eyes out of his head. Racism.
The companions are able to pretty quickly dispatch the draconians, but as I said at the beginning, there are also hobgoblins here and there are some mercenaries, and they're trying to prevent some of the hobgoblins from leaving. One of them jumps out a window. There's a part here where Goldmoon tells Raceland to do something. She's like, use your magic. And he's like, nah, I'm good. He's like, there's no point.
Well, I mean, he's still like a low-level wizard. He's got like a couple of spells, and it's like a bar fight. You can handle this.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because like the hobgoblin jumps out the window, and we're supposed to notice here that if he had jumped out the window in chapter 1, he would have fallen like 40 feet out of a tree. Jumping out a window now, he lands on the ground 4 feet away because the inn is on the ground.
Yep.
But yeah, so of course Goldmoon's pissed that Raceland's just not doing anything, but she doesn't have a staff anymore. She can't just go and swing around and fight.
The alarm goes off. We hear it in the outside.
Yeah, and then Flint looks down and is like, wait a second, I know this elf.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and then Taz, of course, just clunks Flint in the back of the head with a mug, and Flint just pieces out before he said anything.
This is funny. So they recognize the elf, and then Tanis is like, we have to escape. Let's go out the back. And Tika's like, there is no back. The inn is on the ground. There's no back escape anymore. They're surrounded by goblins and hobgoblins. Tanis says they surrender, and then guess who shows up? Viewmaster Toad. Again, this is another inversion of how the book started. Tanis and Flint met him and a couple guys in the woods outside of Solace, and they ran him off.
And now I am the master.
Yeah.
And of course, Sturm is like, I am not giving it to no stupid hobgoblin. And Tan's like, yo, bro, we don't need to die right now. This is not the game we're trying to play. Let's chill out.
Viewmaster doesn't recognize him, so they get lucky there.
No. he's seen how many random just humans. He doesn't care who any one group is. It was nighttime when they're asking about the staff, and so Toad's like, I don't even care.
This is funny because, as we said, Goldman wanted Raceland to do something and he refused. And now, when they've already surrendered and they've given up, and the goblins are coming around.
Whoa, hang on a second. Hang on. This is weird. So I hadn't realized this, and I'm doing some close reading to the book. Apparently, Toad did not recognize them. A lot had happened in a week's time, and the few master had important things stuffed in his mind already overloaded. And I'm like, a week's time? When was that? There's no way that they left Solace a week ago, ran off to Zaxaroth.
No, I think it is.
But then you're like, okay, well, wait. But when you think about it, yeah, like,
They were a day or two out of Solace when they left,
yeah, and they went to,
when they got to the forest, and they had 3 days.
right.
And then they rested one day in the temple, and then they went down. Like, it's pretty close. Even though what's most impressive, though,
Yeah, maybe like 2 weeks, but I'll give them a week, sure.
what's most impressive is that they got back in like a day or two from where they were without the help of,
Like the Pegasus or anything.
yeah, even if they only took them part of the way.
Well, because they were able to take the main roads this time.
Oh, okay, got it.
Because, like, when they had to go from the Darkened Wood to Zaxaroth or whatever, they had to cross through all the jungle and the mountains and everything to get there. On the way back, they were able to just take the main highway
Got it.
through to get to Queshu and then over to Solace. I think not a week, but I think it would have been more like 2 weeks than a week, because I just like, but it's still, it's,
They're very efficient travelers, apparently.
I mean, they know what they're doing, I guess. And so, of course, Toad looks, he sees the knight's armor, and he's like, refugees come from Solamnia. And Tan's like, yes, Solamnia, that's exactly what it is. Of course, let's go. Because he figured Toad probably hadn't heard of Zaxaroth yet and hadn't heard of anything that might have happened there. And he's not about to encourage that. And he's like, yeah, we journeyed long days from the north. We didn't intend to cause trouble. And Toad's like, yeah, I don't give a crap. Y'all need to just go to my slave mines here. And he goes in the back and he sees Raceland is hanging out there. He's like, oh, what are you doing skulking over there? Go get him. And Raceland's like, don't touch me. I'm a wizard. And the goblins are like, we'll take you anyways. If every man wearing red robes was a magician, this country would be overrun with rabbits. Like, pulling rabbits out of your hat. I love it.
He casts magic dart, right? This is magic dart.
Yeah, magic missile, baby. Like, the goblin's like, I'll stick him anyways. It's no big deal. Tanis is like, okay, Carmen, again, your brother can handle himself. He's strong. So Raceland raises his fingers and uses some nice Indonesian to cast a spell, casting the level 1-iest one of one spells. The first spell that every mage learns, Magic Missile, which is, it does d4 of damage plus something or some fixed amount depending on your edition, and it never misses. There was one edition where they made you roll to hit your Magic Missile, and the players were so mad that they took away the one unmissable attack that wizards have, that Wizard of the Coast basically changed it back immediately. Because it's Magic Missile. This is it. The whole point is, this is like the most iconic wizard spell there is, next to like Fireball.
Otherwise, just throw a knife.
Like, Magic Missile never misses. Yeah, I mean, effectively, that's what it is. They're like darts. They're a d4 plus. So you're just throwing little thingies, but it's a mage's last kind of resort. Look, man, when in doubt, I can just pull out my BB gun and pop you in the face.
Well, and it's enough to kill one goblin, which I guess is good, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, but...
If you were soloing this, you'd be screwed, because unlike a thief who has multiple daggers, a wizard can only cast this spell once. So if there's 3 goblins, like, you're pretty much toast.
So, yeah, and the thing about Magic Missile, of course, is that as you're leveling up, you get one every other level. So if you were, at this point, Raceland having passed the test and leveled up, he's probably like 6th level, so he should have about 3 missiles, because you get 3 to 4 missiles at 5th level.
Okay.
And 3 missiles at 5th, 4 at 7. So he would be able to shoot 3 missiles, and he could, if he wanted to, split those missiles to go after 3 separate goblins.
Got it.
And it does like a d4, so it does like 2 to 5 points of damage because d4 plus 1. So yeah, he would have been able to handle like 3 goblins, maybe, because goblins also had like
4 health.
Chump change for health. But it's still like, yeah, after that, if you miss, good luck, Holmes, you are dead. Of course, Raceland goes and zaps these guys, and suddenly all the goblins are less interested in trying to take poor Raceland by force here. And so...
And we learned Toad says there's a reward for magic users, so we want them alive.
Mm-hmm.
They disarm the party.
Oh, yeah, I love this one, though. Toad is like, the Lord doesn't pay a bounty for live kenders, only their tongues. Do that again, magician, and the kender dies. And Raceland's like, Go ahead.
Yeah, not bothering me.
Like, am I I'm sorry, was I supposed to care about freaking Kender? Yeah, goblins, by the way, have 1d8 hit points.
Okay.
They would have had, like, 1 to 7 hit points, something.
So Goldmoon hesitates to give up the discs, and then Raceland reminds her. He's like, "Remember what this staff did to me?
Yeah.
Only good people are going to be able to touch this. Everyone else's stuff is like, oh well. Raceland's stuff is also protected by wards and spells."
Yeah.
And then here's where Shivan was telling me before we started. Here's one of his little favorite parts, and I'll let him read it. Where when Sturm is not about to disarm.
Yeah, so here's the thing that, like, this one of my favorite things here, and it's like another one of these running jokes throughout the series, is that Raceland is sitting here. He's like, look, we got to give these guys our stuff or we're going to have trouble. They're going to try to kill us. The last thing we want is for them to take the discs, right? Or my spell book or my staff. Sturm is like, I am not giving him my sword. Toad is like, oh, what a beautiful weapon. I'm going to totally take this. And he's like, maybe I'll just take this one. Raceland, of course, before Toad can reach over and grab the bright blade, Raceland goes, kneels by the pile of weapons and bags and everything, and a bright light flashes from the mage's hand. Raceland closes his eyes and began to murmur strange words, holding his outstretched hands above the weapons and packs. Stop him, yelled Toad, but none dared. Finally, Raceland stopped speaking and his head slumped forward. His brother hurried to help. Raceland stood. Know this, the mage said, his golden eyes staring around the common room. I have cast a spell on our belongings. Anyone who touches them will be slowly devoured by the great worm, Caterpillius, who will rise from the abyss and suck the blood from your veins until you are nothing more than a dried husk. The great worm Caterpillius? Breathed Tasselhoff. That's incredible. I've never heard of... Tanis claps his hand over the kinder's mouth. Yeah, you've never heard of the great worm Caterpillius, but neither have they. They just know that a mage went and made everything glowy, and when that wizard who just killed one of your buddies makes everything glowy, you are inclined to listen to him, because suddenly this pile is glowing with green aura. And
there's this part where Karaman goes, "That's a wonderful spell, Race," he said in a low voice. "How effective is it? Could it..." "It's about as effective as your wit," Raceland whispered and held up his right hand. As Karaman saw the telltale black marks of flash powder,
yeah,
he smiled grimly in sudden understanding. It's like, you dummy, Karaman.
I love this part, though, because first off, the Great Worm Caterpillar shows up like a handful of times later on in the series because it's such an iconic little scene. And Margaret and Tracy love to just think about how clever this is, because what this is, this shows that Raceland is still not only the smartest guy in the party, but also the most quick thinking, right? He's sitting here, he's surrounded, he's obviously out of his one spell for the day or whatever.
He must have a pretty high charisma stat, which is unusual for wizards because he's doing all sorts of bluffs here.
Well, remember, bluffs and things in the old days were, I think...
Well, if it's in tight intelligence, then yeah, no wonder, because wizards have high in.
They didn't have checks in first edition.
Ah, interesting.
They were kind of like the DM was encouraged to let them try and just be like, all right, you want to try it? Roll your, like, go ahead and roll a d6 and let's see what happens.
Oh, so it was just a d6 and on a high roll it worked?
Or like, roll a charisma check or something. Like the idea of having like bonuses and stats and stuff didn't come in until much later.
Interesting. Okay. Well,
yeah,
it made for a better story to have him do this. So
yeah. But yeah, the trick here is that they're trying to show that Raceland is both the smartest player in the party and also the quickest wit. He's out of the one spell he's got for the day. He's faced with insurmountable odds. There are goblins who are staring him down, and his party is full of dunderheads who are more likely inclined to fight than to flee. So what does he do? He falls back on his old tricks from when he was just a street rat magician hanging out with Karaman when he used to perform parlor tricks at the fair for money or whatever. And this comes up over and over again in Raceland's character. He's able to perform all these feats that people think are impossible. And then later on, he reveals that, yeah, he's just got gunpowder taped to his wrists, or he's using like sleight of hand, or he's using effectively dexterity tricks.
Why use magic when sleight of hand or some trickery or some social engineering will do just as well, right? Save yourself a spell slot.
Exactly. It's showing that he's not just reliant on the magic, which is super important for his character because it shows like how he's independent minded. He's not beholden to like the orders for his power. And it shows that he will never be less than self-reliant. He's always like, look, even when I don't have my magic, I've still got me.
Got something.
It's weird because like in the beginning of this book, they describe Raceland as like hideous and horrifying because his skin's turned golden and he's supposed to be this the fleshless monster, kind of like, he'd been totally wrecked by the test. But because of Raceland's like skill, charisma, and dexterity, all of his depictions and later on, like all of his explanations and stuff, just make him look like he's this golden god instead of just this hacking, desiccated dude with tuberculosis. It's things like this that kind of help with that identification. Because Race here is basically just using parlor tricks to con stupid people. So is that an intelligence check? Is that charisma? Is that dexterity? It's definitely dexterity because he's sneaking stuff that they can't see. But it's a really clever way to build out his character and to show that this guy is more than just a creepy weirdo.
You said that Caterpillius shows up a couple other times. Does he ever show up as like an actual worm? Does someone in all of the books ever actually summon?
No, because Caterpillar doesn't exist.
That would have been a funny thing where if at one point someone had actually summoned Caterpillius, like some big giant worm.
It just shows up periodically when, like, later on, when as a callback, sometime Sturm and Rayson are talking or whatever, and he's like, "Yeah, man, don't worry, Caterpillius is watching over my stuff, right?" And they're like, "Yeah."
Oh, got it.
It's just kind of like a name drop from a more innocent time. Thankfully, nobody has tried to actually create a Caterpillius. God, what a way to kill the magic. So basically, the goblins come, they take Tanis and the party, they capture them, and Tanis turns around as he's leaving, and he's like, "Man, I wish I had died before I'd seen this, before I'd seen the inn just completely leveled." And that's how the chapter 2 ends.
Yeah. It's like Tanis was the last to leave the inn. He cast a final look around. A single light swung from the ceiling. Tables were overturned, chairs broken. The beams of the ceiling were blackened from the fires, in some cases burned through completely. The windows were covered with greasy black soot. I almost wish I had died before I saw this. It's so sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, wow, this inn is like the heart of the adventure, and now it's just a hollowed out wreck, right? Like Tracy and Margaret really, really hammer home a lot of the despair and disaster that this war is bringing, and it's also, I think, it's these little touches that just make this book so memorable to me.
So, chapter 3 is The Slave Caravan, a strange old magician.
This one is cool. Like the opening image to this chapter is so wild. It's this like circus cage almost of like on wheels that looks like an old timey jail with like bars and a lock and everything. And so the companions are basically stuck outside in a chill, sleepless night in this iron barred cage on wheels in the middle of town square. And it's tied to a stake that's been driven into the ground. These wooden posts are black from flames and heat. And so basically, this is a place where dragons come for their practice, right? So basically, these guys have been thrown into one of the slave caravans. The day has dawned.
We learn that this is the last slave caravan out of Solace to pack Tharkson.
Well, yeah, because like you saw in the last chapter,
everyone else is gone.
Right. The only people left are like Tika and Odik and the blacksmith.
Well, I guess there's 3 or is there 4?
4 what, people?
There were 3 of these wheeled cages. There's 3 of them.
Yeah. So effectively, they've kind of just like, they have drained the town. There's nobody left here. And Toad himself is going to be taking this to go to impress Lord Verminard in this place we've only heard about but haven't seen yet, Pax Tharkus. We will find out more about that when we get there.
Here's where we meet Gilthanis.
Yeah, so
that elf who caused this whole fight.
Oh yeah, we totally skipped over the fact that they met Gilthanis, didn't they?
But they didn't really meet him. Like they said who he was, but it's here in this chapter that we actually learn who he is.
We should go back a step and talk about what happened here because we kind of glossed over this part here. Flint gets conked out by the cup, and he's like, "Tanis, that elf." Tanis stood and looks, and he's like, "Gilthanis." And of course, the elf stares at him and he's like, "Tanthalos, I would have never recognized you with that beard."
Yeah, the beard.
And suddenly it's like, oh yeah, Tanis has a big, rich red beard. Of course, this man doesn't know Tanis. He knows Tanthalos the bastard who lives in his town, not Tanis Half-Elven, the leader of forces. So, going back to chapter 3 here, they're all in this box. Tanis is currently sitting here, and he's feeling really, really sympathetic and empathetic to the 2 barbarians, Goldmoon and Riverwind, because he's like, man, their homes were obliterated like a week ago, and now my home is obliterated. I guess I understand what they're feeling like now. Everything is empty, and I hate the world. And so he glances over.
He wonders, he's like, oh, I still have a home with the elves, right? And he's like, do I? And then, yeah, he looks at Gilthanis, who has not spoken at all night they were in this cage.
Yeah, now think about it. We don't know yet their relationship, but just consider, like, we don't know in the book, but in the story, Gilthanis and Tanis, they were raised together.
It says like they're raised like brothers, basically. And they are cousins, I think, right? Because the
Yeah, they were raised like brothers. Technically, Tanis is the son of Gilthanis's like uncle's wife.
brother's widow.
Yeah, basically. So Gilthanis's father, Solace, was a speaker. His brother married a woman. She was raped, and that's Tanis's mother. So Tanis is not technically related by blood, which is important, but it's also like they were raised as family, as siblings. And Gilthanis is looking and he's not saying a word. First time he's seen his sibling in like years, years and years and years. And of course, Tanis is staring at him and he's like, yeah, I guess I could also go back home to Quanisty, right? And he's like, no, man, Quanisty was never home. It was just a place I lived,
Harsh.
which is cold.
Because he lived there for like 80 years or
He lived there for like 100 years. I mean,
oh,
he lived there for a very long, I mean, that's literally where he was born and raised. That's his first language. That's like, you know, his people. And he's like,
that's wild that he doesn't consider it home.
yeah. And it's just like, that is cold, man. Right. Like sitting there is like, oh no, that's not home. That's a place that I lived. And that is like emphatic
It's rough.
idea of his character, right?
It's rough.
Like, who is Tanis? Consider Solace, this weird human town where he was just kind of living there with his dwarf buddy and Kenner buddy. This is his found family. This is what he thinks of as his home. But his family that he was raised with, he's like, no, that's just a place I was stuck by blood, not because I wanted to be there. I don't know. I always thought that was a really poignant scene, and it gets even more hammered home as we go forward. So Few Master Toad comes out there. He's like, all right, I got these people. This is awesome. I'm going to get me some chicks. I'm going to get reward. Everything's going to be great. We're going to go kill the elves. Toad is just like, you know, in daydreams.
He hopes to get a promotion, and he thinks that if he goes to see Verminard himself with these 3 cages of people, kisses enough butt, he'll get his promotion.
I mean, there's no one in Dragonlance who falls up as much as Toad does.
He's the most white male of all the characters.
Oh, he is the king of middle managers, right? Like, and he's so greasy and gross and just like super gnarly. But learned here, his reveries are interrupted by the sound of steel and shouts and everything. He's like, what's going on? Can't we even just take a prisoner? What's happening? Why are there all this turmoil and nonsense? And the cry bellows above the noise, a man in torment and pain who is raging with anger. And Gilthanis stands up and he's like, I know that voice. Theros Ironfeld, I feared this. He has been helping the elves escape since the slaughter. This Lord Verminard has sworn to exterminate the elves. And then he turns to Tanis and says, or didn't you know? These are the first words he says to Tanis. Not even hi, hello.
It's accusatory.
More like, hey, bro, people you've been hanging out with are here to obliterate us. And Tanis like, what? How the hell could I know?
He's like, forgive me, he said at last. It appears I have misjudged you. I thought perhaps that was why you had grown the beard. Again,
ooh.
because we're going to learn, as Shivam says, they do a big background dump here where we learn more about the relationship between these two. But these two were basically brothers. For 100 years, they were basically brothers until we'll find out why.
Yeah.
It's just automatically he just assumed the worst about a person that he was raised with, and you would, which is wild because when you hear like the background of like what caused the rupture, it doesn't really make you think the person is evil. There's no reason for him to think that Tanis would like betray elves just because like over the one thing that made him leave Qual Nostra is not enough to make Tanis hate elves, right? Like it's not enough.
Yeah.
For you would think for someone who's basically your brother and knows you so well to just assume that like you're on the side of the guy who wants to commit genocide against your people. It's just wild.
Yeah, but at the same time, like Gilthanis has all of this built-in racial hatred from 300 years of cataclysm where they turned to all the humans went and screwed up, ruined the universe, took the gods away, screw these people. And then, of course, your half-brother turns out and grows a beard to be like one of those gross, filthy humans.
Oh, that's right. Of course, the elves and the dwarves and the Kender blame humans for the cataclysm.
To be fair, it was their fault. Like the king priest was definitely a genocidal maniac. Of course, Gilthanas is looking like, yeah, man, you grew a beard and you went and like sold us out. Tanis is like about to go and just start getting into a fight again. And
How dare you accuse me?
yeah, and Sturm is like, yo, maybe calm down, because they turn around and they see the goblin guards are pointing their arrows right at their heart. Tanis is like, oh, whoa, okay, fine, I'll calm down. And then a squad of hobgoblins drags a tall, powerfully built man into sight. And Gilthanas is like, yeah, I heard Theros has been betrayed. I came back to warn him, because he's the reason that, I escaped Solace alive in the first place. Toad opens the door, grabs the goblins, and they throw this dude into the cage. This cage is being dragged by elks, which is an interesting little detail.
Are there not supposed to be horses in the world of Kryn? Because like so far,
No, there are horses.
have they shown us any yet?
Yeah, but the reason that you don't see horses here is because Flint is deathly afraid of horses
Oh, that's right.
and pretends to be allergic to horses. And because of that, the companions respect him and don't have horses around. It's on those cute little character details. It just shows up.
Okay.
But so Theros Ironfeld.
It is weird that the elks pull this, though. I was like,
Yeah, like,
wait a second. Of course they're horses. You're right, because he's allergic to them. But it is weird that they have all these other things doing like,
I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool. I'm like,
yeah, it's cool. It's
wow, getting to tame. I mean, it makes it feel fantasy.
yeah,
Like
it is.
elks.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat.
But we find out they throw Theros in there, and he's laying unconscious on the straw-covered floor of the cage. And it says where his strong right arm should have been was a mangled stump. His arm had been hacked off, apparently by some blunt weapon just below the shoulder. Blood poured from the terrible wound and pooled on the floor of the cage.
Let that be a lesson to all who help elves, says the Few Master. He won't be forging anything ever again unless it be a new arm. That's not foreshadowing. The thing that's wild about this, so like Theros is Urgothian. That means that in Dragonland terms, he's black. The Urgothian were the original empire of Ansalon. They're dark-skinned black people. They also eventually became the ancestors of like the sailors, who were also dark-skinned. But Theros here, who's been living in Solace for quite some time and has a really cool novel about himself, he's a blacksmith, and his arm just got straight torn off. His right arm, which is the arm he would be using to actually forge things with, not only tore it off, but they didn't even like tie off the wound with a tourniquet or anything. They just left him to bleed and die. Then in the middle of, Toad's speech, an elk comes and just kind of like knocks him over. And there's a creature leading the elk who is Taz looks and he's like, oh, it's a short goblin? What's going on? And he's like, no, it's actually just a gully dwarf dressed in a goblin's armor. Good old Seston.
And he appears to be like Toad's goon, right? Like his personal assistant.
Yeah, basically he's like world's worst personal secretary here. We'll get back to him in a second. He's useful and handy. All the gully dwarves that show up, except for like, the high bulb, all the rest of them are actually good, honest people. But Gilthanas is over here, and he is basically ready to start praying for like, say like the death mass over like Theros, because Theros is like, my faithful friend, you paid for your loyalty with your life. You're obviously going to die. Theros is looking at him with vacant eyes. He's not hearing the voice, because obviously all of his lifeblood is pouring onto the floor. Gilthanas is trying desperately to stanch this wound, but I don't know if you've ever looked at your arm. If you were to tear it off, no amount of bandages are going to help you fix that.
There's some big veins right there.
Yeah.
Where your shoulder goes into your torso, so...
Yeah, from where your heart is just leading directly out.
Goldmoon says he doesn't have to die. She's like, I'm a healer. And Gilthanas is just rude, right? Like you said, they don't like humans. He's like,
yeah.
There exists no healer on Kryn who could help this man. He has lost more blood than the dwarf has in him. His life beat is so faint I can barely feel it. The kindest thing to do is to let him die in peace without any of your barbarian rituals.
Yeah.
He ignores him and she heals him.
Yeah, but I mean...
She doesn't regrow an arm, right? That would be... This is still a miracle, but she doesn't do the miracle, but...
I mean, the thing is, if she was a high enough level, yeah, maybe she could. In early D&D, losing limbs was a thing that could happen. If you rolled a crit on a weapon or something, you could get your limb. But it's also just a really important point that his arm doesn't get healed. But we'll get to that later.
When it's an important part here that now this is the first time people other than the companions are seen. It says here that Gilthanas is stunned and the other prisoners notice, but the goblins didn't notice.
Yeah.
So they've all seen this miracle for the first time in 300 years.
That's the thing, right? Like Gilthanas, his words might be a little crude and super racist here, but at the same time, he is an urbane, intelligent elf who has lived for a long time, and he has seen what post-cataclysm life has been like. People pray to any random thing they can find, or
Yeah.
wave herbs around, or have a rat cure. Of course, he's going to be skeptical that his dear friend is literally dying, and this chick comes up and is like, "Yo, I can heal him." It's like, sure you can. I believe you, Florence Nightingale. Whatever you want. Please just let this go. Don't try none of your nonsense. This is garbage. And of course, Goldmoon ignores him and she prays. She's like, look, beloved Mishigal, beloved goddess of healing, grace this man with your blessing. If his destiny be not fulfilled, heal him that he may live and serve in the cause of truth. Which is a very Christian sounding prayer almost. Like, if his destiny be not fulfilled.
I mean, I guess good gods are good gods, and they all want the same thing, whether it's the
Yeah.
Christian deity or Mishakal, the healing deity of Kryn.
It's just the way the prayer is like written out. It just has a very specific Protestant cadence to it.
I mean, she did say amen, so
Yeah, but I'm sure if Tracy had thought of a Keshu way of saying amen, he would have probably put it in there. And so Gilthanas was like reaching over and he's like, okay, lady, that's enough of that nonsense. And he stops and stares in amazement because there's no more blood pouring out of this wound and the flesh is beginning to close over it. Warmth returns to the smith's dusky black skin, his breathing growing peaceful and easy. All the other prisoners are sitting there going like, what the hell? The goblins and stuff are all too busy trying to deal with the elk that is currently trying to run their boss over. And Gilthanas kind of goes back and he looks at Goldmoon and suddenly he's a lot more thoughtful and a lot more like, huh.
other stuff is going on here than just what he was thinking was going on here.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, this is weird and you shouldn't be able to do that. People in my father's time could do that, but they all left with the gods 350 years ago.
Oh, was there a rapture?
Yeah, that's what happens in the Cataclysm. One of the things in the Cataclysm is that before there are these warnings that the gods send down before the rock is thrown to destroy the king priest. And the first sign that things are going wrong is all of the true clerics of the world, all of the true believers, all of the real people who had actual power were raptured. They all disappear and they're all taken by the gods of every denomination, not just the good gods.
Was it 144,000 of them?
We are never given exact numbers, but I'm just saying all the true believers are raptured up. And that's part of why, like, and suddenly,
Like evil clerics too?
yeah,
Okay.
all the gods withdrew their true believers. Because why would the evil god want to leave their people there when they're just going to get vaporized under the rock they're about to throw, right?
That sounds like the thing an evil god would do.
Yeah, well, no, they need their demon servants, right? And so all the clerics disappear, and that's why there's no healing magic anymore. They left when the god left.
Got it.
And that's why, like, when the king priest is still there, he's like, well, all these impurities have been taken from me without realizing he's like one of the few unraptured ones left who is like still around.
Oh, he just assumed that they were all impure
Yeah,
instead
he
of.
assumed that they weren't good enough and couldn't kick it. He's about to summon the power of the gods down upon himself. And, well, he summoned the power of the gods down upon himself.
In a way, he did.
Yeah, so when Goldmoon's sitting here and performing this magic, she's literally the first good cleric in 350 years, not counting Taladas, not counting some of the other post facto things.
All that other stuff that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, the point though is that it's like she is meant to be like, hey, this has never happened. This hasn't happened in my lifetime. And elves live for like hundreds and hundreds of years in Dragonlance. So his father remembers the cataclysm, but Gilthanas was born after the cataclysm. So Gilthanas has never seen true healing before. So Goldmoon makes sure Theros is comfortable, and she's got this glow on her face, which is like, yo, I communed with the god, and it worked. Suddenly, it's noon. The goblins throw random food in there. It's all gross and rancid. The gully dwarf, of course, eats it because he's not going to let food go to waste.
He's a gully dwarf.
Yeah.
So it heads out. It's going south. As Shivam said, each cage is pulled by 4 large elk. There's about 50 draconians and 100 hobgoblins. By evening, they reach the town of Gateway, and it's completely destroyed. And it just keeps going. And they mention that like the draconians do better at nighttime. I guess they're a little weak to the sun.
They also just don't want to be seen.
They just keep going. And Theros finally wakes up, and he relates the horrors of the sack of Solace. And he talks about, people tried to fight back, and we learned that when some draconians die, we know that some of them turn to stone. We've seen that. He's like, but some of them have explosive bones, and others become pools of acid.
Hmm.
Just wild stuff.
This is where we start to learn that there's more than just the Boz draconians who turn to stone. The Boz, of course, being from brass. We learned that the Kapaks are there who turn to pools of acid. The Bozaks whose bones explode, but they're not given names yet because I'm probably sure they just didn't have names yet.
Tanis is like, how can we defeat these dragons and their armies of draconians? We did what the gods asked, but all we have is some discs. Really, we don't even have them right now.
Yeah, but I love this sentence though that he says like, how can they defeat vast armies of these draconians when even the corpses of these creatures have the power to kill? Which is such a cool visual. And also, like, one of the things that makes draconians super unique, it's like, you killed me, you thought, but I'm gonna take you with me. And it's like, what a trap, man.
It's best to use blunt weapons, apparently.
Yeah. And of course, Tanis is trying to read the discs of Mishgal. He doesn't speak God, so he doesn't know how to read them. Goldmoon can understand the chunks that pertain to healing arts. So we're starting to learn that these discs have like the entirety of like the good God's Bible, but only for people who can understand the parts that pertain to them, which is unique and interesting because these are just, magical MacGuffin, right? But Goldmoon now has a mission. She's like, all will be made clear to the leader of the people, and my calling is to find him. Tanis wished he could share her faith, but he's looking around and he's seeing that there's a slave caravan full of his neighbors being taken to hell. And he's like, this one's a little hard for me to buy. Sorry.
And his problems, Raceland doesn't have his medicine, so now he's starting to get sick. And he can't be healed by Goldmoon, which I always thought was a little weird because the healing is dependent upon her faith, not on his faith.
Yeah, but his sickness is not a sickness that can be healed by her.
Got it.
It's not something that does damage to him. It's not like a physical wound to the body. It's the trade-off of the test he took. Part of his commitment to the magic was sacrificing the health of his body.
She can't even like just make him feel better.
No.
Because it's like a psychosomatic kind of thing. It's like
it's like a persistent just part of who he is. Like the best she can do is just bring him back to coughing. Like he's still got to drink this tea. He's got to suffer for his art. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
The gods didn't give him like by the way, it's weird that the mages have persisted from the Cataclysm forward, and they get their power from gods. They're theoretically, technically clerics. However, they're not.
But they're like different gods, right? The
moon gods.
They're like different.
Yeah, because the moon's never left, right? They've always been there.
Yeah, and they're like, aren't they more abstracted out than the other gods?
Well, no, they were just like, we are not going to leave, so screw you.
It made it kind of sound like they were like, I don't know, like the other gods had bodies, but the moon gods didn't have bodies.
The moon gods also have bodies.
Oh, okay.
However, they just prefer to take the form of being the celestial bodies there. They're like, look, we have problems with our parent gods. We left the heavens to become moons here on purpose. We are not leaving just because you're abandoning them. We don't give our clerics healing powers. We give them magical arcane abilities. And without us, they would still be using crazy wild magic. With us, they will not just try to destroy each other, right? So it's just cute. But yeah, so Raceland, of course, has to just cough, and he can't do anything about it.
When we learn that Goldmoon is being helped by Tika to kind of like nurse Raceland and Theros, and this is where we learn, because she's looking at Raceland, and we learn that Tika's dad introduced Raceland to magic, and when she saw how talented he was, enrolled him to study magic. So Tika, it's kind of like a sister to Raceland. And
again, they were all raised together, right? Like, but here's the thing, though. Margaret later changes this.
Oh.
Margaret decided that Tika's father was meant to be like this kind of this weird, illusionist.
He was like a carnival wizard.
Yeah, he's a carnival wizard. But Margaret makes a note in the Annotated Chronicles that I changed this in the Soul Forge to having Kitiara place Raceland in mage school because we always represented Kitiara as being the person in the family who had the primary responsibility for the twins. She was the one with the foresight to see that Raceland would need the magic to help him survive in the world. Raceland's father, who was incredibly worried about money, would not have chosen to enroll his son in an expensive private school. So Kitiara is Raceland and Karaman's mother, Rosamond, basically Kit's mother as well. She was like given to mystical trances and mystical like kind of like seizures and stuff. She had a lot of like arcane sensitivity. Their father was this like crazy, mean old woodchopper. Kit's father was this vagabond adventurer who left. And
Great role models.
yeah, exactly. So when Race's dad, like, kind of is sits and pieces out, when their mom dies, Kit takes over and she's like a teenager and she's already been a mercenary for a while because she's like adventuring and she's not dealing with these idiots and stuff. And she's been living off of her skills with a sword and her skills in other places. And she's got money and time, and she's come back to watch her kid brothers and gives them the chance to get into wizardry.
It's kind of sad that they changed that, because it kind of, I don't know, I guess it goes against the thought where, because Raceland acts like there was no one to help him ever, and this little vignette here shows that, like, no, like, people have always been looking out for you. Like, this man who thought your father took care of you and enrolled you in school. Like,
It's still, for Raceland's purposes, amounts to the same. He's like, I am in debt to, like, he's like, I hate being in debt to people. Nobody was around to help me, even though his sister basically watched him his whole damn life. Even when she was evil, she was watching out for him, right? Like, even when she's working with the Dark Queen, even when she's like betrayed everything else, she's still like, my kid brother, I've got to make sure you're still alive. Race is just so egotistical and martyred. Like, he's got this whole martyrdom complex, and he refuses to admit that his brother has been there the whole time, that his sister's been there the whole time, that his father, that he had people who were there for him. He's like, no, I did this. I'm a self-made man. It's like, bro,
look around. All these people are holding you up.
open your damn eyes. And of course, like, the wizards, when they're doing his test, they give him these cursed eyes in the hope that he might actually start looking. And now, instead of seeing like people and ignoring them, now he just sees them dying and he ignores them. So it's like, great job, wizards.
Yeah, I was going to say, this High Council of Wizards doesn't seem like they know what they're doing.
No, it's really, really, like, maybe not the most intelligent decision of all time. But yeah, so we learn more about Tika and the fact that Tika's always had a crush on Caramon, and that she's always kind of respected Raceland, but like from afar because he's a weirdo. And Tanis is sitting there like, he didn't know what to worry about the most, the worrisome condition of the mage or the growing romance between the older experienced soldier and the young, and Tanis believed this gossip to the contrary, inexperienced, vulnerable barmaid. Tanis, Caramon has been around the block a few times, many times. Tika has not left her house. She is still in like, she's like barely out of childhood, right? Like, she's like 16 or 17 or something.
Daddy Tanis here is worrying about everyone, and he's like, and don't get me
Yeah, and Daddy Tanis is like, Caramon is
don't get me started on Sturm. He's being all depressed too. He's like,
yeah, Sturm is of course humiliated and sad all the time, and he's just like mopey. Tanis has got a problem because he's like, look, Caramon is jovial and ignorant, and he's just like lived a life, so he's totally ignorant of the fact that Tika is just a hopeless romantic with no idea what she's doing.
yeah, there's a lot of room for miscommunication there.
Yeah.
And Karaman's not the most clever or
Aware,
discerning guy in that sense.
Yeah, like he would totally take advantage without having any idea he's doing something perhaps inappropriate. And Tanis is like, bro, I can see this. You need to chill. That bridge will be crossed later. And then, of course, Tanis has to deal with the fact that every time he looks at Gilthanas, he gets memories of his long buried and forgotten Gilthanas, who is his childhood friend slash the kid he was basically raised to have as his brother, right? They were about the same age.
Yeah, we get this nice big flash, but we get this info dump on who Tanis was before he went out into the world of humans. And we learn that he grew up with Gilthanas and they had a little sister. And we learn that he grew up in the house of the Speaker of the Suns, who's the ruler of the elves. So, like, Tanis is basically like a prince, even though he's only half elf.
Yeah.
We learn all about how the Speaker adopted the bastard son of his dead brother's wife after she had been raped by a human warrior. She had died of grief only months after the birth of her half-bred child.
By the way, half-breed child is such a horrific thing to say.
It's weird to me because, like, bastards don't matter at all.
Yeah.
In, like, today, like, who cares? No one cares.
Right.
It's not a thing people can, like, say anything about.
However, and even then, though, it kind of didn't matter either, but that's part of why, he's the son of the leader of the elves.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's why it matters. Like, if they were just cobblers, it wouldn't make a difference. But if you're talking about royalty,
Well, and this is like all these weird racial things and how the elves don't like humans and humans don't like elves. This is not a perfectly accurate way of saying it, but like it would be like if the Capulets and the Montagues had,
Yeah.
if Romeo and Juliet had actually got together and had a kid, all the angst that would have caused. This is the same kind of angst kind of here, right?
Yeah.
Humans and elves hate each other just the way Capulets and Montagues do.
Right. Or like any conflicted group of people. Like, I mean, it's like in India today, if like a Hindu and a Muslim had a child
Oh, yeah.
in the 40s during partition time, that would have been a real just like humdinger of like, yeah, we raised this kid, but he's a half blood Muslim. You know, we can't have that, right? And it would have just been like all this kind of, because Tracy makes a note when they're setting up the story and the game, they have to build a party, right? A standard AD&D party. They've got to have like their human, their dwarf, their halfling, whatever. And at some point they figure out, okay, we need to have a half elf character, like a half elf ranger, because it just that's the way the kind of classes broke out. But they're looking at this. It's not enough to say a half elf. We have to know why. And the result of answering this why is what made Tanis into the central figure of the story. And it's such an important question that leads to such a deep characterization of like one of the reasons Tanis is one of my favorite characters is because he's got this full blown conflict that's just like it's the first time when I read about this, the idea of interrogating what it means to be a half elf, what it means to be in a culture where you're only peripherally part of, and no matter how much you try to assimilate, they won't let you assimilate. As a kid growing up a minority in America, it resonated very, very strongly with me that this notion of belonging but not belonging, of speaking the same language as everybody else does, but knowing that they're still looking at you fully differently. Like Tanis has this whole issue here, right? Like first off, so his uncle is the king, and that makes his father, the king's brother, would have been like, one of the princes or high ministers or some high ranking royalty. And his wife gets raped. And so we've got this kid who is of no fault of his own, born a half breed to like a woman who was basically assaulted by an entire like race of barbarian humans who are the enemy of these elves here, because this is after the cataclysm, after the elves have already turned their back on all of civilization and blamed the humans for bringing the cataclysm in the first place. Then one of these humans comes up and justifies all their racial hatred by raping the princess and giving birth to Tanis. And so, of course, we've got this big problem here. And now Solastar, and the head of the speaker of the sons here, he's got 3 kids. He's got Portheos, who is his crown prince. He's got Gilthanas, a second son, who was raised and born at the same time as Tanis. And then we've got Lorana, the youngest daughter, Laralan Thalassa, daughter of the speaker. And so we've got this bastard son who, because Solastar loved his brother, he raises this kid as one of his own and gives him station. So Tanis is raised with privilege and raised at the highest echelons of elven society. However, that also means that he's dealing with the same sort of things that we see like Meghan Markle dealing with. All the people walking around with super racist clothing that's just historic, and they're like, oh, it's just, English history.
Well, and bad mouthing you constantly, no matter what you do, looking for any mistake you might make because they don't like you.
Oh, yeah, and microaggression after microaggression.
This is another thing that they highlight here is that like he's all good with it. It's fine. The speaker, the son can handle it. And then it talks about because Tanis is half human, he becomes an adult sooner.
Yeah.
It says here, being half human, the young man acquired a maturity the slower developing elf maid could not understand. I guess elves stay younger longer in a sense.
Yes. So elves have a longer adolescence and youth, and humans mature way faster because obviously by the time that an elf would be considered an adult, the human's already well and dead, right? And so a half elf is like, again, like the name says, halfway in between. So Tanis is sitting here. All these kids have been raised together for 60, 70 years, but Tanis is suddenly growing like facial hair. Tanis is getting muscles. Tanis is getting awkward limbs, and his voice is cracking, while Lorana is still the equivalent of a 12-year-old, and she's falling in love with him.
When he's being more introspective, right? Like his frontal lobes are developing more. And so he's like, oh, wait, I too can see why there's a problem here all of a sudden.
Yeah, like if you read one of my favorite books, which is called Kindred Spirits, which is like the history of Tanis and Flint and how Flint met them. And, it shows about Tanis growing up as a gawky youth. And you see this kind of just feeling of like, what is it like for this guy growing up? He's been raised with these people. They're his family, but now he's like All the older elves hate him. All of Portheus's rich high blood friends are like, look at this, mutt who's just here by our goodwill. And they're like teasing him and, mistreating him and microaggressions and racism and just all this bullying, which is no wonder that Tanis is like, no, man, that's not my home. That's a place I lived. Like, he saw the writing on the wall, right? Like,
Well, yeah, it says it here. It's like at the age of 80, about 20 in human years, Tanis left Quillanost. The speaker was not sorry to see Tanis leave. He tried to hide his feelings from the young elf, but both of them knew it. Gilthanas had not been so tactful. He and Tanis had exchanged bitter words over Lorana. It was years before the sting of those words faded, and Tanis wondered if he had ever truly forgotten or forgiven. Clearly, Gilthanas had done neither. So it's like this is all living longer means that you have longer memories and you hold longer grudges.
oh yeah. That's the thing. Like, think about it. Gilthanas sitting there watching his sister fall in love with, effectively this guy who is their half brother. But at the same time, Tanis is his human side. They would really rather he just hid it or found some way not to flaunt it. And suddenly this dude, like, that's why when Gilthanas meets him for the first time, he's like, oh, you got a beard now. I see. I get it. You're just flaunting it. You're rubbing it in that you're a human. You half human, like slug who never good enough for my sister, etc., etc. All of just this built up rage of hundreds of years. And Tanis just books it and leaves. And he's like, screw this. Like, y'all don't need me. I'm going to go follow Flint. And him and Flint go adventure around. And then he settles down in Solace and never goes home. And he's like, this is now my home. These are my family. Like Caramon and Kitiara and Raceland, Flint and Taz. All these people are his found family, people who accept him for who he is and not the accident of his birth. Now he's suddenly faced once again with these repressed feelings of just not belonging, of like just being completely displaced from the society that he was living in.
Yeah,
and he has to deal with that again. And he's like, oh God.
It's just like when you see, I don't know about you, but I have gone home occasionally and see someone from my high school or middle school. And even though, someone who was rude to me or a jerk, and like some of that dynamic still comes back, and it's like, what are we doing? I'm an adult. Like, why am I letting how I felt as like a 7-year-old affect this? Like, this person is a nobody.
Exactly.
It's exactly what all these old feelings that he thought he had buried can come back and bug you. Tanis, I guess he tries, right? He's trying here to engage with Gilthanas, but he refuses to talk to anyone. Except for when Caramon starts talking about like how we should escape, he's like, don't even bother, right? Like he doesn't have anything to say. He's not trying to. Tanis is at least trying to reach out. Maybe
Yeah, but
Gilthanas just isn't interested. He's acting as if none of them are even there.
because when you think about it, Gilthanas right now has got a couple of things going on in his mind. First off, he's dealing with this elven genocide that is forthcoming. The fact that the guy who he was building a rebellion with just got his arm lopped off and thrown into a cage, and the fact that their entire rebellion was basically just brushed aside and vaporized. And then, out of nowhere, his old half brother shows up again, flaunting a human beard. And now Gilthanas is in a box with these people, and these guys have delusions of escape. And he's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, he's in like multiple levels of shock, right? But then, at the sunrise of the third day, the prisoners rouse themselves and look out of a cage bar, and they see an old man dressed in long robes that might have once been white and a battered pointed hat talking to a tree. I say, did you hear me? The old man shook a worn walking stick at the oak. I said, move, and I meant it. I was sitting on that rock, he pointed to a boulder, enjoying the rising sun on my old bones when you had a nerve to cast a shadow and chill me. Move this instant, I say. The tree did not respond. It did not move. I won't take any more of your insolence, the old man began. He began to beat on the tree with his stick. Move or I'll... And the few master toads like, somebody shut that idiot into the cage, please. They grab him, and they're like, get your hand off me. Arrest the tree. Obstructing sunlight. That's the charge. And the draconians are just like, get in the box, old man.
Arrest that tree. Like, you got the wrong guy.
Yeah, and so this is like the return of Fizban, the character who started the whole story, and of course one of Tracy's favorite archetypes, the old guardian wizard who comes and gives you sage advice, and probably one of the coolest characters.
Did they create Fizban?
Oh yeah.
Okay, but has he appeared in other books outside of Dragonlance?
Only as an homage to Dragonlance.
Okay.
Fizban is like one of next to Raceland, he might be the most iconic character. Raceland, Tasselhoff, and Fizban, I think, would be like the trinity of characters that come out of Dragonlance.
Well, I know that there is just some D&D books that are like Fizban's Book of Spells.
Yeah, no, that's because it's post facto, non-canon. It's not relevant to this. It's just because they were like,
They needed a famous wizard, right? And Fizban is like,
Fizban is the human avatar of Paladine. Paladine's, of course, the god of dragons. So having Fizban's Guide to Dragons both refers back to Dragonlance, refers to Paladine, the Platinum Dragon, refers to all these things, and brings a beloved character back from the dead. That's all.
okay, all right. I just know that I've seen D&D books that have Fizban on it, and so
Yeah.
they're not labeled Dragonlance. So
Don't get me started. However, that book is cool, and I'm glad that they remember Fizban too, because Fizban is awesome. I love Fizban. They throw him into the floor. Riverwind grabs the old man and puts him in the seat and is like, "Are you all right, old one?" Goldmoon rushes over and he's like, "Are you hurt? I'm a cleric of," and Fizban, of course, knows exactly who she's a cleric of. He's like, "Oh, Mishigal, how very interesting. You don't look 300 years old." And Goldmoon's like, "I beg your pardon. How do you know?" He's like, "Well, she's my wife, but." And of course, he's Goldman's like, "I'm not 300," and she's like, "Of course you're not. I'm sorry, my dear. Never bring up a lady's age in public. Forgive me. It won't happen again. Our little secret." And Tika and Taz are just like giggles now because they're like, "This is crazy and everything is weird."
Well, and then he's like, "Kind of you to pick me up, kind of you to stop and offer me a lift. The road to Quillanost is long." Gathanis is like, "We're not going to Quillanost.
Qualinost.
We're not going to Qualinost.
Thank you.
We're prisoners going to the slave mines." And he's like, are you sure? Is there another group coming by? Because I I could have sworn my ride was going to pick me up here today. And then they learn his name is Fizban. And I thought, like, Tasselhoff goes, "Fizban? That's not a name." And it's like, your name is Tasselhoff. How can you go around judging names?
Yeah, and of course, I love what his response was like, "Isn't it?" The old man asked wistfully. "That's too bad. I was rather fond of it." And Tika's like, "I think it's a splendid name." And I'm like, "Oh, I love these people." Yeah. Still, though, Raceland starts coughing again as these guys are starting to get settled with this crazy dude. And Karaman's just like losing his mind. He's like, he needs that tea. They're not giving to him. He's going to die. What do I do? And Tan's like, "I guess we'll ask him at nighttime." And Fizban's like, hang on a second. Let me go and have a conversation here. And he puts his hand on the mage's head and sternly speaks a few words. Karaman's listening closely and hears the word Fistendan and "not the time," and certainly wasn't a healing prayer the way Goldmoon tried, but the big man saw that his brother had responded. The response was astonishing, however. Rayson's eyes fluttered and opened. He looked up and saw an old man with a wild expression of terror and grasped Fizban's wrist in his thin, frail hand. For an instant, it seemed like Rayson knew the old man, but then Fizban passed his hand over the mage's eyes. Look of terror subsided, replaced by confusion. "Hello, name's Fizban." And Rayson's like, "You're a mage." And Fizban's like, "Yeah, I guess I am." And Rayson's like, "I am Magi." And Fizban's like, "Oh, no kidding? Small world. I'll have to teach you this spell Fireball."
And then I guess he says the old man rambled on long past the time the caravan stopped at the rising of the sun. But I have questions about this.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's a hell of a paragraph.
It almost makes it seem as if Fistandantalus is the one who's making Raceland sick.
Yeah, it sure does, doesn't it?
We just said that the council made him sick.
Well, we of 5 minutes ago just said that.
Yeah.
See, because the deal here is why you brought up a couple of interesting questions. Why can't Goldmoon heal the sickness? Why is Raceland sick after he takes the test? How did he survive the test where he got blasted by a dark elf in the original version of the story of the test, and where he's basically getting obliterated? How did he survive? Where did this golden skin come from? Because that wasn't the curse that they gave him. The curse they gave him were the eyes of Alana that let him see the dead of people. All of these answers are because there is a crazy demon lich wizard named Fistendantalus, whose spellbook we found a little earlier, one of the greatest wizards of all time, a black robe, who went and, in a trade-off to keep Rayson alive during his test, because Fisty is always looking for a new host for his spirit, and he finds this young, ambitious, hyper-powerful mage and says, "Look, man, you're about to die. I will protect you in trade for your soul." And Race is like, "I'm going to die. I will grab any route that'll stop me from falling off this cliff. And they do. And they make an exchange, but Race is like trying to out clever him. He doesn't realize you can't beat the Lich, who is like, been around and done this many, many times before. And Fistandantalus coats him in spell after spell and gives him a skin of protection. This gold skin that Raceland's got is the gift of Fisty, because even the wizards are like confused how he came out gold afterwards. But he's got this resistant skin that protects him from fireball and from other things like that Fistandantalus gave him.
So the council doesn't know that Fistandantalus is in Raceland.
They do. They just can't do anything about it because Fistandantalus is the strongest mage who ever lived, and they can't go and stop Raceland from making a bargain of his own free will.
Is them weakening his body trying a way to contain Fistandantalus?
Kind of, yeah.
Or it's also Fistandantalus trying to exert control over...
What it is, like we just see here, where Fizban, who is the god Paladine, is sitting there, grabs Raceland, and can speak to his spirit, and speaks to the Lich directly and says, yo, bro, we see you. You are draining the life out of this man. This is not the time. If you want to accomplish your goal, you're going to need to let him live long enough. And immediately, Fisty relaxes his grasp on Raceland's soul and lets him calm down again.
This is so weird because, like, why wouldn't the god just get rid of Fisty?
Because it makes a difference for the needs of the future. Let's say Raceland's got a purpose. Fizban knows this purpose, and Fizban is not about to interrupt this because things have to happen.
Okay.
However, one of the things here that's also really important is that once Fizban talks to Fistandantalus and tells him to bug off, because he is Paladine and he can just shove. If he sends Fisty away right now, Raceland will die.
Got it.
Because Raceland's life is dependent upon Fistandantalus. Raceland is not strong enough, independent enough yet to be able to deal with this on his own. He gets there later, but he is not there now.
Are there times when Fistandantalus is controlling Raceland outright?
No.
Like, are we supposed to never, like, when he said, I need this book, and he was like,
yeah,
was that Fistandantalus saying,
yes,
get my book?
That was Fisty telling Raceland, like, look,
okay,
you need to get this so that I can unlock your powers.
Okay, so it's never Fistandantalus directly taking control over the body.
No, because Fistandantalus does not have full control of Raceland yet.
Okay.
That's what Legends is about. They have a fight where Fistandantalus tries to take control of Raceland, but that we'll get to later.
Okay, I was just wondering if there were parts in the story where we would like know that, oh, maybe Raceland is like an unreliable narrator. Are we supposed to think, was that Raceland or was that Fisty? But it seems that...
No, because Raceland is still clever enough to be able to make his own decisions. However, he is very easily influenced by Fisty. But in this case...
So Fisty is just like a voice in his ear telling him things. It's not absolutely controlling him.
Yes.
Okay.
Like the spell didn't work perfectly. He's got a grasp on Raceland's spirit, but he can drain his life. Fistandantalus needs Raceland to live so that he can take his body and take over and be able to live forever.
Got it.
So killing him is not in his interest. And Fizban reminds him, like, hey man, if you kill this guy before you're done, you're not going to get your reward either. The thing that's important here is that as soon as, Fisty relaxes and allows Raceland to, come back to consciousness, Raceland looks up. And with his crazy eyes that see melting everything.
Oh, he sees someone not melting.
And he sees Fizban, and what he sees is the platinum dragon staring back at him. He sees the true Lord of Good looking down at him. And then Fizban, of course, passes his hand directly over his eyes, and immediately Race forgets what he just saw. Because Fizban's like, I need you to not right now leak that I'm hanging out with you. So... there's a whole lot that just happened right there. And so we get this whole thing.
Is Fizban's fireball a more powerful fireball than the normal fireball?
No, it's just a fireball.
Okay.
But it's also just like iconic. It's just cute and fun.
Isn't there some point in the books where he casts it?
Many times. We'll get there.
Yeah. I had a vague recall of it, so I didn't know.
Yeah. Fistandantalus recognizes that Paladine's there. Raceland sees something that cannot be, and Fizban's like, this is not the time. Whoosh. And the chapter ends with Fizban rambling on as the cart keeps moving towards Pax Darkus.
That's the end of chapter 3. Next time we'll start with book 2, chapter 4, Rescued, Fizban's Magic. My name is Jonathan Howard, and you can find me on Twitter at False Logic. maybe only for a couple more weeks because who knows how well it's going to last.
Yeah, I mean, we might spin up a Discord or some other means to contact us because God knows how Twitter's going. But my name's Shivam, and you can find me at ElectroTal. And this has been the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast, which you can find at Dragonlance Pod on Twitter. We would love it if you guys would go to Apple Podcasts or any of the other podcast services and give us a rating. That helps the algorithm show us to other people. Or even better, just share our podcast with your friends and other Dragonlance listening fans. We would love to reach more of us, especially now that, D&D has put out the new Dragonlance setting, the new books have been coming out. There's no more like an interest in my beloved home of Kryn, and we would love to reach as many of you as we can. And if you have any thoughts about the podcast, or if any ideas or feedback or commentary, we would love to hear that as well.
Absolutely.
Until then,
don't be a stranger.
We'll see you next time on the Chronicles of Dragonlance.